McProbst.
And I'm Dan Ratcliffe.
Well, we did it again. We got another Texan on the show, and she's
Yay!
a special one. Sharon Mondragon has a book out. It's called The Unlikely Yarn of the Dragon Lady, an inspirational story that will encourage readers to leave their comfort zone. Sharon, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
Now, before we went live, you and Dan were talking all kinds of, you're basically speaking Greek as far as I'm concerned. We're talking about Texas towns and crazy Texas hamburgers, but I'm glad you could talk about those things. Let's talk a little bit about you. How long have you been right there where you are in Texas?
We've been in Midlothian for 7 years, ever since my husband retired from his career in the military.
Mm. And why Midlothian? Do you have family there, or is it just?
My daughter lives just 8 minutes away.
Oh, that's awesome.
Wow, that's awesome. We appreciate your husband serving. So he basically retired there where you are, is what you're saying?
Well, our final duty station was Fort Gordon, which is in Augusta.
Mhm.
We enjoyed our 5 years in Georgia very, very much.
Yeah.
But we had spent 12 consecutive years stationed in Texas, and at that time, 4 of our 5 children were living in Texas.
So it just seemed like the natural place to go. And of course,
If
Texas is
we were
God's
going to see the
country, so
grandchildren,
yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Very wise. Well, let's talk about the book. I also want to talk about you also put together Heavenly Hugs prayer shawls. You have that ministry. I want to talk to you about that in just a few. Let's talk about the book. What is the book about, and how is it going to inspire us to get past our comfort zones?
Well, the Heavenly Hugs Prayer Shawl Ministry has been meeting for the last 7 years in the prayer chapel of their church. They've been knitting and praying silently for those 7 years. The church is dying. There are fewer and fewer people every year, and their pastor has been commissioned to do one of 2 things, either to close the church or to bring it back to life. And so far, all the usual stuff has just not even made a dent in the inertia of the congregation. But he comes back from a clergy conference inspired. The bishop has said, people aren't coming to church anymore. We have to take church to them. And he thinks, aha, what is so cozy and inviting as a group of women knitting? I'm going to send the Heavenly Hugs Prayer Shawl Ministry out to knit in public. Now, these 4 ladies have varying opinions about being banished from the prayer chapel to go knit in public. Each of them has a place in their lives, a place of pain where they're stuck. And they end up knitting at the mall during the Christmas shopping season. And through the various people that they meet and the experiences that they encounter, each of them is brought to a crossroads where they need to decide whether they're going to grow past their pain or stay stuck. And along the way, they also positively influence the lives of the people that they meet at the mall, people that they would never have met if they'd stayed in the prayer chapel.
Wow. What a great story for us in these days, because obviously this is happening in the church these days, where people aren't going to church as much, especially the younger generations. When they graduate from high school and go off to college, they leave the church, and a lot of them aren't coming back. And you're right, a lot of it is going to be us getting out of our 4 walls of the church and going out and being a part of their world and bringing Christ to them. So talk about I'm really curious, how does the Dragon Lady come in? That had me when you had Dragon Lady.
There are 2 dragon ladies in the story. Both of them are bossy women. Margaret has ruled the church with an iron fist for quite a while. And then there's the manager at the bookstore, who has also ruled her daughter and her bookstore with an iron fist for many years. I started writing those characters because I have been blessed with a number of bossy women in my life.
Is it a blessing? I mean,
yes, it has turned out to be a blessing.
That's good.
But not being a bossy woman myself, I couldn't understand. I was so perplexed by how they could feel so comfortable steamrolling over other people. And so it started out as an exploration of why. And when I got to the core of Margaret, I realized that she and I were really not so very different.
Wow.
We're talking about The Unlikely Yarn of the Dragon Lady, and it's a great book that you can get. How long has it been out, Sharon? What have you heard so far?
It came out September 21st, 2021,
Yeah.
and I've had wonderful, wonderful reviews and people contacting me via email, via my website. People really seem to love it. It seems to be striking a chord. And in fact, just on Monday night, I had a new student at the shop who wants to learn to knit because she read my book.
Oh, wow. How cool.
I know, it's awesome.
So
Well,
have
now
you
you-
had, go ahead.
Go ahead, Dan.
I was going to say, so have you had anybody that has come to you and said, you know, they identify with a certain character and they're like, how do you know me so well? That's me, you know, whether it's Margaret or Rose or Jane or Fran, whoever it might be.
It's mostly been the Margarets.
The bossy ones.
Yes. But I was deeply touched by a Fran who she's someone who comes and knits at the shop sometimes, and she had just read the book because I wrote it. And she had lost her husband about a year before, and she said, if I had the money, I would give this book to every single person in my grief support group.
Wow. Wow.
Sharon Mondragon, the book's called The Unlikely Yarn of the Dragon Lady. I want to put you on the spot, Sharon. You talk about moving out of our comfort zones. You putting this together and writing it and then rereading it and reading it. Your comfort zones. Have you moved out, or what are you moving out of?
Oh, I moved out of my comfort zones a long time ago. When when I was a sophomore in college, I read the book Main Street by Sinclair Lewis. And I was pretty perturbed with the people in that story because they seemed so content to never change, to never grow. And then when I thought about it, I realized that I wasn't so different from them. And I projected my mind ahead to when I would stand before God with the fruits of a life that had been lived well within my comfort zone. And I was ashamed.
Wow.
And so at that time, I prayed that my married life would be an adventure. Partly because I did want to be married, but also because if you're going to go on adventures, you need a boon companion. And a year later, I met my husband, and it has been an adventure ever since, moving around in the military, our 5 children who are all very different from each other and very different than I ever dreamed they would turn out. And so it's been an adventure ever since.
So God has put you out of your comfort zone several times. Sometimes we don't like to be out of that comfort zone, but sometimes he moves us out of there just so we learn to rely on him more, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I just noticed that a viewer on Facebook from Georgia.
Yeah, Julie Murphy says listening from Georgia. So
is there a Julie Murphy that you might know?
No, there isn't.
all right. Well, now you know. You should get to know her. She's listening from Georgia. So.
I'll bet she's a fan. She probably is. Thank you, Julie. We appreciate that. Sharon, we appreciate you. Thank you for putting out the book. We'd love to talk to you again. There's a website. Is there a website that they can?
Yes, there is right there.
All right, check it out. Hey, let's take a break. We'll be right back. I'm Rick Probst.
And I'm Dan Ratcliffe.
This is Faith Talk Live.